Hey everybody, David here, and today I want to talk about Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, the 8th season in the Power Ranger franchise. It's been a while since my last Power Ranger review, and I thought I'd get back on it. Why not? Because, this new Power Ranger movie is coming out really soon, and I want to try to review as many of the seasons as possible. So with that being said, let's talk about it. First, we got to talk about the Rangers themselves. We got, Carter, the Red Ranger. We got Dana, the Pink Ranger. Joel, the Green Ranger. Chad, the Blue Ranger. Kelsey, the Yellow Ranger. And Ryan, the Titanium Ranger. And I'm going to say this was an okay group of Rangers. I think the Yellow, Blue, and Pink Rangers they were probably my least favorite of the bunch. But I do think the Green Ranger was probably the best one, Joel, played by Keith Richards. If I hope I got his name right, right? Because Keith Richards, isn't that like the guy from Rolling Stones? I thought the Green Ranger in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue was the best Ranger from this season. He had an on and off relationship with one of the supporting characters named Miss Fairweather, who was the weapon designer and the one who created the suits and the powers for this specific team of Rangers. And I thought there was some fun back and forth between them. And Joel as a character was usually more of the fun one, and so to me he was like the more cooler one of the bunch. Carter as a Red Ranger, I remember at the time I wasn't a huge fan of Carter, but as time went on and I went back and rewatched Lightspeed Rescue, I look back at that season as, Carter wasn't that bad after all. He was pretty cool, especially when you compare him to the Red Rangers that came later on, specifically in the Disney seasons, which I felt a lot of them were kind of bland. Carter is actually not that bad. He might be the Boy Scout type, like where he's the straightforward Red Ranger, where he goes by the book and everything like that. But I think it fits the type of show that this is. I also gotta say, I really like Ryan, the Titanium Ranger. The Titanium Ranger, for those of you that never watched Lightspeed Rescue, is the first Ranger that was created specifically for the American version of the show. If you don't know by now, Power Rangers was based off a Japanese TV show where they got some of the footage, mostly the action footage, and sometimes the villain stuff too would be Japanese, and they would just put American voices over it. They would do the stories in their own way. Not all the stories were copying from the Japanese version, but they did put in the words how they would fit it in their story that they were trying to tell. And the Titanium Ranger was actually the very first American creation that did not appear in the Japanese series. It appeared here and only here, which is why the Titanium Ranger was kind of pushed back a little bit. They had him for like maybe 9-10 episodes maybe, and then they had him go away and he only returned in the finale. And this was like a 40 episode season, so he was only there for maybe 10, 11, or 12 episodes, and then returned for the last two. So in total he was probably there for like 14, 15 episodes. But for the amount of time that we did get him, it was really cool and well done. I really liked his story arc, how he started off evil because of this deal with the devil sort of situation, and then he had to realize, does he want to help the demons or does he want to go back to his father, who is the mentor of these Rangers, and help them out instead. I think it's actually a lot better than even Tommy's introduction to the franchise. As for the villains, I think the villains are actually the ones that really steal the show in Lightspeed Rescue. In the beginning, not so much, but I think specifically in the middle of the season, when they came back from their summer break, because this was still during the time where Power Rangers used to air, just like a regular show. They would have, even though each season would start in the beginning of the year and end at the end of the year, they had February to May Then they would take summer break off, and then they would air September to November, the rest of the season. It would be starting with Time Force, where the whole season would be playing throughout the whole year, including the summer. They don't do that anymore. Unfortunately, they went back to their old ways. But Lightspeed Rescue was the last one to do that. And when they came back for their September run, September to November run, I remember the villains getting a lot more interesting. Diabolico was a villain from the beginning that was really interesting. And I heard rumors that the reason they brought him back after they killed him in the first half was because they actually did think he was an interesting villain, and they liked the rivalry between Olympus, who took over later on, and Diabolico, who wanted his position back. But there was also Queen Benshira, who was Olympias's mother, and she wanted her son to take over the family business. So there was a lot of complex things going on with the villains that I think really made the show a lot of fun. Because starting with Power Rangers in Space, the 6th season of the franchise, the villains were starting to get a lot more interesting and a lot more dimensional. They had more dimensions to them, I felt. And unlike the original series in Zeo and Turbo, where the villains felt more like cookie cutter villains, they were just there to be villains. Well, Space and Onward gave us more villains with layers to them, I felt, and you really felt that in the writing. And I think that's something this season recognized, that hey, the villains are actually a little bit more interesting than the Rangers, so let's give the villains a little bit more to do. And that's something they did really well. We also got a team up this year, starting with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, or technically Zeo. We had a team up where the newest team of Rangers teamed up with the previous year Rangers. So where last year we had the Power Rangers in Space Lost Galaxy team up, this year we get the Lost Galaxy Lightspeed Rescue team up. And I'm going to say that I think compared to the Space and Galaxy team up, this team up wasn't as good. And I don't know if it had to do with them using Sentai footage, the Japanese footage, for this team up, or whatever it was. It did feel something like the earlier episodes of Lightspeed Rescue, where I noticed specifically a lot of these early seasons, it took them a while to find their ground in how they wanted the season to feel. And they usually figure it out by the September run, September to November run. That's where they usually find their footing on what they want the season to be. And from my understanding, the Lost Galaxy Lightspeed Rescue team-up was done way in advance, unlike the Space and Lost Galaxy team-up, which was done later on while the show was in progress. And they also really marketed it as a direct-to-video movie, which was kind of annoying because it wasn't really a movie. It was really just a 2-part episode. And when it came out on VHS, the only minor difference is that there's like a little edit that's a little different from the TV version, which has to be continued. So Team Up was kind of disappointing. There are things that I'm always looking forward to in seasons, even though nowadays they don't have it as much. It's something that I really enjoyed. And even though it wasn't perfect, it was a lot better of team-ups that were to come later on down the road. I'm going to say this, the acting in this season wasn't probably the best to showcase Power Rangers. Like, if you're going to show somebody, hey, you want to see these awesome actors? Like, Power Rangers has had some awesome actors on their shows. And I'll admit it, I think there's some great supporting actors. There's some really good Power Ranger actors who have gone places. Rose McIver, who's in the CW's iZombie right now, she is doing great for herself. Ika Darville, who was in Jessica Jones and will be back in The Defenders, he's doing really good for himself. So, and Amy Jo Johnson, Amy Jo Johnson is doing really well for herself. She was just in the show that was filmed here in Toronto, Flashpoint, where I think it was Flashpoint. It was a SWAT type TV series that was filmed in Toronto. I'm probably messing up the title right now, but anyways, Yeah, so she's doing great for herself. Uh, but Lightspeed Rescue wasn't the season. Other than Keith Richards, who played the Green Ranger, I think the rest of the cast was very wooden. Specifically, one actress who, when she tries acting, her voice, her performance in general is just hard to watch. And she is the actress who played Vipera, who was one of the villains in this season. My God. I mean, I'll feel bad if she watches this review and she's like I'll make her cry or something. I'll feel bad, but I gotta say it like it is. She has to be one of the worst actors to ever appear on this show. Her name was Jennifer L. Yin, and yeah, man, you know what? Worst actress I have ever seen this show have. And this show, Power Rangers in general have had some really bad actors, but this was the worst. And I'm sure she's a really nice person in general, outside of the show. I'm sure she's a great person to talk to, but if I'm gonna call it like it is, it's really cringeworthy at times, even for Power Ranger fans. So with that being said, guys, you know what? Lightspeed Rescue was a fun season. When you go back and look at it, it really does. It doesn't hold up to the best Power Rangers seasons of all time, but I do have it in my top 10 for a reason, because there are a lot of really good episodes to really delve into, including the Titanium Ranger story arc, and as well as a couple of other things. Yeah, the team up might not have been the best, but it's still worth checking, especially if you loved Lost Galaxy. You might want to check that out. It is cool to always see previous Rangers return, because who knows when you'll see them again, if you'll ever see them again. So with that being said, I'm ending this here. Did you guys ever watch Lightspeed Rescue? Was that one of your favorite seasons? Let me know. And until next time, guys, hopefully I'll get to Time Force. Time Force is another one of my all-time favorite seasons, so I really want to talk about that one. Maybe I'll do it this week. We'll see. And until next time, take care.